Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership What's on Your Mind, a podcast to make you think and change your perspective about your leadership journey by telling stories of great people who have got a story to tell regarding their leadership journey. So today we're speaking to Ian. How are we doing, Ian? Are you okay?
I'm great, thank you, Stuart.
Fantastic. So Ian, I met through a local networking, and I had the pleasure of listening to one of your first, podcasts that you did to share your story. And as soon as I heard that, I knew I had to get you on. So, Ian, while I put the 20-minute timer on, we know that 20 minutes goes really quickly. Just introduce yourself to people who might not know you.
Right, hi everybody. My name's Ian Crosswell. I work now as a Thrive Programme consultant, and I'll explain that later on. For the benefit of those who can't see me, like all of you, I am nearly 67 years of age, so I've got a long story. It's going to be quite interesting trying to get it into 20 minutes.
I know. I love a challenge, though. So,
Okay.
when I heard your story, it very much fits into the bracket of leadership, of self and others, and some of the tests and challenges that you've had in that journey. So just to start us off, and again, you might not have been aware of it at the time, but reflecting and looking back, are you aware of when your leadership journey started?
You're absolutely right. I wasn't fully aware at the time, but I would say in my mid-teens.
Okay.
Which you've gathered is a long time ago. At school, I learnt to play the violin badly, but I formed a love of music and everything related to music. And by the time I was 16, I was organising concerts and running orchestras. At the age of 17, I was actually instrumental in setting up a symphony orchestra. When I think back now, it's 17, that's amazing. But every job I've done, everything I've done in my life since then, has involved leadership. I worked in the music field either part-time, because I didn't leave school until I was 19 after A-levels, but I worked part-time to begin with, and then full-time after leaving school for several years in the music business, classical music. And it was always me that organised the concert, made sure everyone was there, led the thing, and got everybody organised. I might not be the greatest violinist, but I was a good organizer and a good leader. But then I decided I needed to settle down, because that was a very volatile field. I could be busy 1 minute and then quiet for a long time, and look round for a more traditional job. Found a job in a building society, and within a year was being asked to run a department within the branch. Building society branches looked a lot different in those days. There were 72 staff in that branch.
Wow.
And I was asked to run a department with 8 staff. I was also told that because I'd only been there a year, I couldn't be officially promoted until I'd been there 4 years. So I very quickly did a sum and realised they wanted 3 years of leadership without paying me for it. So I went and worked somewhere else and got promoted. Within 3 years, I was a building society manager, leading a team. At that point, quite a small team in London, but then transferred up to Liverpool when I met a Liverpool lass who insisted that if I was to marry her, I was to move. So I obeyed, and I took over as manager of the Alliance Building Society in the centre of Liverpool in North John Street. That building now, Stuart, is in fact a Forces recruitment office, so a bit closer to your history than mine.
Yeah.
There we had 20 odd staff, so again I was leading a team. Circumstances changed, and I then went into the law and started running a team of commercial conveyancers. So again, leadership at every level really within the team. Leading, I've always led by example. I believe in leading from the front, and I believe that if I'm doing something or asking other people to do something, I should be able to do it myself, at least to a reasonable standard. That went on for a little while, and then another complete career change when I was asked whether I would take on a project for a firm in the construction industry. I laughed. on the grounds that I knew nothing whatsoever about the construction industry. Why should I run a project for them? But it was explained to me that they wanted me for my leadership abilities. This was a project that was going to run for about 6 months, with a team of between 25 and 30 men working 24/7 to produce a particular product that was used actually at the Coca-Cola bottling plant in London. So they wanted somebody who could run the team, make sure everything worked smoothly, keep track of everything. And they offered me the equivalent of a year's salary for 6 months' work. I did the sums on my fingers and realised it was a good idea. Actually bought that project in less than 6 months, slightly under, and under budget. So everybody was happy. And I was asked whether I would stay on in a sales management role, which I did. So I stayed within the construction industry in sales management effectively for several years, moving a couple of times because better opportunities arose, until 2008. And by the time we get to 2008, I was general manager of a family-owned business, not my family, another family-owned business in Manchester, with 28 staff, turning over some £4.5 to £5 million a year, supplying the construction industry. Everything was going really, really well, and then everything went really, really badly in the autumn of 2008, when everyone will remember the crash. We tried to keep the business running, but there was no possibility. The word construction and bank didn't go together. The bank just pulled the plug. So Easter 2009, I found myself out of work. A situation I'd never, ever been in my life before. And in fact, I'd never produced a CV before. I'd always been invited to apply for things or invited to interview or take a job. So that's what I did. Now, the one thing I've not mentioned is that from my teens, at the age of about 17, I'd always suffered with anxiety and depression. Sometimes cripplingly so, sometimes not so bad. So at 17, I was actually given my first antidepressants by our GP, who at that time told me they were the magic pills and everything would be fine. Periodically, for the next umpteen years, it would come back. I'd go back on medication, and so on. So by the time we got to 2008, when that happened, obviously my reaction wasn't good, put it mildly. I'd been on antidepressants for a long, long time. Nothing had really changed. They were just holding the problem at bay. And if I wasn't on antidepressants, I was on alcohol. So I was functioning, but not happy. I then had to take myself in hand and find something to do, because obviously the jobs weren't there. So I actually set up a business, which I based in St Helens, supplying the construction industry in a much, much smaller way. My plan was set it up, keep it lean and mean, and then as the construction industry came back, because obviously it would, we all need buildings, then I would grow with it. And I set that up at the end of 2009. It actually opened at that point. But I set it up with a sleeping partner who on paper didn't exist, but we had a private agreement so that I'd got somebody there to support me should the need arise. He was a manufacturer based in the Midlands, private company, and he didn't want to be seen to be involved because of potential competition issues, which was fine. Things went well. Stress and anxiety got to me quite a lot, I'll be honest, because even when things were going well, I was always waiting for them to go badly again. That was the way my mind worked. If things were going well, it was too good to be true. If things were going badly, then that was all I should expect anyway. So again, I was on antidepressants. I was on at one stage a couple of bottles of wine every night. And I have to confess, then driving to St Helens the next morning, which was probably a very bad thing to do. But I got through it. And things were going quite nicely. We'd grown the business from standing start to a good turnover. And my game plan was to sell that business when I was 65, which is now 18 months ago, and retire on the proceeds. I don't listen to all that advice that says take out a pension. I just say, oh no, my pension is my business. What a fool I was. And after a period, my wife said to me, we are going on holiday. We've not had a holiday since you set the business up. We need a break. Off we went on holiday for a fortnight, asking my sleeping partner to just keep an eye on things. So the staff in St Helens knew what to do, but just keep an eye on things. And I said the immortal words, there's plenty of money in the bank. There's plenty of money due in because it was over a month end. I've set up all the payments to go out. And you really shouldn't have to do anything. But just in case, there you are. Unbeknownst to me, he then proceeded, the minute he got that information, proceeded to open another business with a similar sounding name. And the minute I was away for a fortnight on the Norfolk Broads, he contacted all the customers who were due to pay with new bank details. He stopped all the direct debits from the bank and basically cleared the business out. So I returned after a fortnight to find no business. I knew nothing about this until I arrived back in work to find a very empty warehouse. He'd even sold 2 lorries, which he'd already set up before I went away. And of course, all the paperwork was in my office in that building. So he got the V5s, etc., no problem, and left me in a mess. I reverted to type immediately because I realised that the debt was in excess of £1 million. And seeing as no one could find him, they were all looking for me. And he didn't exist anyway, as far as the business legally was concerned. So one Friday morning, just over 6 years ago now, instead of driving to St Helens from home, which is on the Wirral, I drove to just outside Wrexham to a bridge. And it was my serious intention to jump off the bridge because as far as I was concerned, I'd lost everything. I'd lost my retirement fund. I'd lost my savings because everything was in the business. And I just thought there was no point anymore. That was it. No way back. Fortunately, I was stopped by 2 policemen who on the day I didn't think was very fortunate. I wasn't that keen on them on the day, but obviously they helped me. And then it came to a period of self-leadership. I'd reached rock bottom. I never expected to, but I did. And I had to do something. And I was very, very fortunate. I was referred to a very good young psychologist who taught me in only a matter of weeks that actually all this problem I'd been suffering with anxiety and depression and low self-esteem, etc., for many, many years was actually in my own head and of my own making. I laughed at her. I thought she was mad. I thought perhaps she didn't understand about psychology. My mind had been put in the wrong way round or was wired up incorrectly or something. And she didn't understand that. But I stuck with it because really I had little choice. I had no business. I had no money. I had nothing to do. I might as well try and leave myself out of this mess. And she helped me. After 3 months, she said, right, there's nothing more I can do with you because A, we've covered everything I wanted to, B, you've come a long way, and C, the NHS won't pay for it anymore. So she signed me off. And she said, I make 2 predictions for you, Ian. One is that I'm never going to see you again because simply you're not going to need me. And the other was you're going to work in the mental health field. Again, I laughed. I was, in my eyes, approaching retirement. I knew nothing about mental health and I had no training. I'd sort of forgotten that I got a degree that was quite relevant, which I just had done as a hobby. And I sort of forgot that I actually lived the experience for all those years until she pointed that out. So her words ringing in my head, I was again at home with nothing to do, no idea what to do for a job, knowing that I had to work anyway, and completely lost really. And I looked around for some sort of training in mental health, and I found various training courses, a couple of which I did, a couple of which I qualified on, but it didn't really seem to fit the requirement fully. And then somebody told me about the Thrive program. And the Thrive program is a mental health training course, which basically teaches people how their mind works and helps them get themselves out of the mess they've got themselves into, rather than doing anything to them. And it transpired that the lady who'd moved in near me, 2 doors away, only a couple of months previously, was actually my local Thrive program consultant. I'd never heard of the program before, and apart from discussing which colour wheelie bin was due out this week, I'd not really had any conversations with her before. I went round, spoke to her, asked her about the program. She showed me the program and she took me through it. And I just felt $1 million. If the NHS had got me off the floor onto my knees, the Thrive program got me onto my feet, standing erect. And I thought, this is amazing. So I spoke to the founder of the program, Rob Kelly, down in Cambridge, and asked whether he'd train me to be a consultant, which he agreed to do. So I spent 15 months in training, and that was one of the things that really appealed to me, how in-depth the training was. Spent 15 months in training and then qualified as a Thrive program consultant a little over 4 years ago. So what I needed to do was leave myself out of the mess I was in. And what the Thrive program teaches people to do is take control, take responsibility where appropriate, but take control and make their lives better themselves, rather than waiting for someone else to do it for them. Yeah. And that was the most eye-opening thing for me. I now work with people in business, at home, children as young as 10. My oldest client was 81, my youngest 10. So complete variety of people. I work in businesses, teaching people how their minds work, how to be the very best version of themselves they can be. And I am one happy bunny. I'm the happiest I've been in my entire life, not on antidepressants, not on alcohol. This is just me. And this was the me that was always in there that couldn't find his way out.
That's awesome. We've got 3 minutes ish left, and I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things there. Thank you so much. That's an amazing story, and I thank you so much for coming on and sharing that, because it's powerful, and one of the reasons why I wanted you to come and share it, because it will make people stop and think. And you've both got, I'm going to pick up on 2 things there and get your sort of advice for others, because everybody who's listening to this podcast is on their leadership journey at some point. We're all on a journey, and there's no set destination or end point. And you've covered 2 things there, which I know was the reason why I wanted you on, because you've got that self-leadership in adversity and challenging times, let's call it. And then you sort of said about your success of leading others. And you said about, you picked up before I sort of jumped in and said about that role modeling and leading by example. What sort of things would you give advice to people on their leadership journey of just getting them to implement something?
The biggest thing that I always insisted on was I wouldn't ask people to do things that I would never do myself. So I would make sure that I was aware of the requirements of what was happening, even if I wasn't capable of doing it. You know, I couldn't necessarily drive that piece of machinery, but I knew what needed to be done. That's as close as you can get to leading by example sometimes. So that was definitely one of the biggest things, I think, but also giving people the chance to be themselves and to lead themselves as well. You can't force somebody into a box. They've got to want to get into that box. So it's encouraging people, but empowering them at the same time.
Awesome. I like that. So if you were to say, let's pick up on the positives of your leadership. Was there a pinnacle point? And again, we said about your start of your leadership journey was subconscious, or you weren't aware of it. What was the point in your development as a leader, leading others, that you thought, yes, I am actually leading people successfully now?
I'm actually not sure that I ever reached that point in terms of self-awareness. I was, and when I look back, I clearly was, because of the successes. But I don't think in terms of self-awareness, I ever reached that point until now, and what I do now. Because when I'm working with clients, I know and I see how they're progressing, and I know what my input has been. But previously, it's just been a case of, well, things are going well, I can't be doing too badly, and that was about as serious as I got about it.
Fantastic. And yeah, that's such a common thing as well. And that's why reflection is really important, isn't it, on building that self-awareness. But Ian, I don't know whether you heard that's the alarm gone off. Sometimes it takes me longer than others to turn it off, but it's gone. So that's 20 minutes. So thank you just initially for that. Really insightful, and I hope people enjoyed listening to your story. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit a like, give us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're on your podcast provider, you won't be able to see us. Please pass it forwards and subscribe, follow to the podcast itself. So just leaves me to say, Ian, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I will put your links to connect with you and to look into you and the Thrive consultancy as well in the links below. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and the same to you.
No problem. And guys who are listening, I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.
Yes.